to the Planning Commission meeting for Saratoga Springs. Today is Thursday, August 25th. It's 23rd, mine's scratched out, and it's 6 p.m. I'd like to take, we're going to start out by turning the time over to Joyce Smith to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance.
I'm just going to stand right here, okay? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, let's have a roll call. Start over here. Commissioner Chris Karn.
Sandra Steele.
Brian Chapman.
Wilkins.
Ken Kilgore.
Troy Cunningham. And city staff.
Gordon Miner.
We have a quorum. This is a public meeting, and we have set aside some time for items that are not on the agenda. If anybody would like to come forward and discuss things that are not public hearing on our agenda, we invite you to come forward now. All right, given that we don't have any, we will close public input, and we'll go on to item number 4. This is a business item. It is a preliminary plat for Westview Subdivision Plat A, located west of Lake Mountain Estates. And we'll turn the time over to Senior Planner Nora Shepard for our presentation.
Good evening. Tonight we have before you a preliminary plat, Plat A, for what's being called now the Westview Subdivision. This came to the city in the last several years and was being called Lake Mountain, but at the request of you folks and the city council, they've changed their name to Westview, and that's what it is today anyway. So this is a request for a preliminary plat for the first piece of the Westview subdivision. This doesn't work. Maybe I have to turn it on. That probably makes sense, huh? Okay. And it is located, as you can see, it's located just west of Lake Mountain Estates. And the portion that is being submitted today is the kind of the easterlymost or lowest portion of the subdivision, and the reason for the kind of odd configuration has everything to do with water pressure zones. And what you see there is in pressure zone 2, and the rest of the subdivision is in pressure zone 3, and there'll have to be a fair amount of infrastructure built before that can move forward. So that's why it's shaped the way it is. They've been working with engineering on that and that boundary. So this thing has been kicking around a while. In February of 2016 is when the city council actually rezoned this, approved the rezone, a concept plan, and a development agreement. The development agreement, however, was never signed and executed. So in August, there was a request by Jason Rickers, the applicant, representing the applicant, to modify one of the pieces of that development agreement that specifically had to do with improvements related to the Mountain View Corridor, the Foothill Boulevard Corridor. And the council agreed to that, but then again, the development agreement had not been signed. And then there was another realignment by Mountain Lands and UDOT of the Mountain View Corridor. And so they asked again for an amendment with the city council. And on June 19th, the city council approved that amended DA. And as of today, the development agreement is signed by all parties, so we're moving forward with that. The preliminary plat application, there was one that was originally filed on July 6, 2016, and then there was a resubmittal on October 16th, 2017, and that's the submittal that we're actually reviewing today. So this is just a visual representation of where the Mountain View corridor, the current idea is, and the current plan is, as you can see, it no longer crosses over the Westview property. So they took all the information and conditions in the development agreement out. So briefly, the Plat A contains 106 lots on 46.11 acres in 3 phases. The primary access is from Harbor Parkway. Secondary access will be from Harrier Drive. There's a typo in the staff report. I just can't read those little letters on the map always. And that second access will have to be in place prior to more than 50 lots being built upon. And then there are proposed open space and amenities that are consistent with 1919, including a detention pond area with some amenities, 2 detention pond areas with turf grass and various amenities, and then a picnic shelter and playground site, and then a 12-foot wide trail and utility access that runs along the northern and eastern border of the parcel that contains the playground and park equipment. And again, those are accessed off the trail for a total of 6.02 acres. So your options are to forward a positive recommendation to the City Council, or to continue with some really specific direction about what additional information you need, or you could forward a negative recommendation to the City Council. This is a preliminary plat. We no longer do formal public hearings for preliminary plats, so it's just in a public meeting for discussion purposes. The applicant, Jason, is here, and he'll come up to the table if you have any questions.
Nora, when you say that it's a business item that is not, I mean, it's just for public discussion, do we have to have are you saying that we do or do not have to have it open?
You do not have to have a public hearing. You may choose to take public input if you wish, but there is no formal public hearing required.
State code does not require a public hearing now for a preliminary plat. It's been that way. A few years back, Charlotte did require it. Before that, it did not. It's kind of fluctuated back and forth. But we did these changes here. I think the council approved in February. One of those was to remove public hearings from preliminary plat stage to coincide with state law.
Okay. Just at the respect of the people who have come here tonight, by a show of hands, has anybody come here for public input on business item number 4? Okay, since they're not, we will not open public input. We'll turn it over to the Planning Commission for comment.
So really, when you're talking about administrative decisions, the decision is strictly, does this meet code? And the problem with opening it up for any public input is all of a sudden you're introducing public clamor. People generally don't come here and say, well, it doesn't meet this requirement of the code or that requirement of the code. They come here and say, we don't want this because of density and the city can't provide services here, and you know, whatever other reason they may come up with, just we don't want this project. But it's those types of discussions are best for like legislative decisions, where the council has that discretion. In fact, the law says you can consider public clamor when it comes to legislative decisions. When it's an administrative decision, you don't have that discretion, and that's why we've made the recommendation. That's why the Ombudsman Office has strongly recommended don't have public hearings for administrative decisions, and so that's generally why you don't want to have those hearings for administrative decisions.
All right, let's open up the Planning Commission.
Is it noticed?
As a public hearing?
Yeah, so it's not noticed then at all. Okay.
Only on the agenda that's posted
But you
and in the paper.
Not the 300 feet notice, though.
No individually mailed notice.
Okay.
Is the applicant here? Hi. Would you like to come forward and tell us your name and address for the record?
Sure. We did have a public hearing though for the rezone, just so you're aware.
Right.
Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Jason Rickards, JDH, or JD Lake Mountain, and the address is 1450 North, 1850 West, Lehigh.
Thank you, Jason. Did you want to add anything to the presentation?
I just wanted to say thank you to the planning staff, and especially with Kevin, too, as we worked through the different development agreement amendments, and it's been a long time as we kind of working through this application process, but they've been awesome to work with, and I just want to say thank you. It's been kind of a long time coming, and it's been really good to work with staff, so just wanted to say that.
Okay, great. Comments? Commissioner Steele?
Should we add a condition that says that no more than 50 lots be utilized prior to the second access, just in case for some reason it sells and somebody's picking it up and looking at the conditions? Sure. Okay. And in the development agreement, it says that because this plat was submitted prior to us changing the street sections, that they can go with the old ones. But in the next plat, which probably has not been submitted yet, will that mean that they then will have to meet today's street standards? And how will they make that? Yeah.
That's a really good question. That's one that we'll probably have to discuss when the next plat comes around.
Yes, so we had this discussion several months ago, Nora and I did. And the reason why the first plat does not have to meet the current cross-section is because the preliminary plat application was submitted before that changed. And it's kind of been pending since then, correct, Nora? Correct. So future plats will have to meet all current standards. So Utah vesting law is when when a complete application is filed and application fees are paid, that's when that's when a developer is vested. We can't change the code for that application once that's happened. And so that's why this plat is vested under the old cross-section.
So the street literally will go wider at one spot?
The right-of-way is 3 feet wider, so ever so slightly, practically imperceptible.
Okay.
Well, now the pavement section's 5 feet wider, so, 2.5 feet.
Yeah,
Oh,
right.
2.5 feet wider on one side over a distance of, 16, 20 feet.
And the reason I mentioned this, it might be, the developer might want to think about the feathering and make it easier on the next plat to start feathering.
Absolutely. Thank you.
And that's all I have.
Ken?
So first of all, I sympathize with all the changes that you've had to deal with as far as with the UDOT. So thanks for sticking with it. And
I know you've had to deal with them as well, so.
Okay, so actually the first question I had was what Commissioner Steele asked. So just wondering, is there going to be an issue with any of the easements if we're going from a 56 to a 59? But I guess that's just going to feather as well as the road does. Is that right? All right.
Yes, they will just transition
Yeah.
also.
Okay. Nora, on the staff packet said that this is a legislative decision, but it's administrative.
This is an administrative item.
Okay, all right. So being administrative, then always ask the applicant, are you willing to meet all the conditions as listed in the city planning staff and city engineers reports?
Yes.
There's a section, it's 8B, regarding the sewer, storm drainage, and roads. Says that the applicant needs to meet the city's standard cross-section current at the time of submittal of a preliminary plat application for a local road. So I guess what you were just saying, Kevin, is their preliminary plat submission was before that change was, so that's
It was.
Okay, all right.
And it's not just when it's submitted, it's when it's complete and they pay the application fee, which it was before we changed that.
Okay. In the map, what's going on in the northeast corner? There's like a little dog leg, or no, the opposite of a dog leg, the little cutout. Looks like there's.
That is a parcel that is owned by someone else.
Oh, okay.
And there is access, as you can see, there's access to it from the subdivision below. My understanding is there have been some discussions between that person and this applicant, but at this point, it's not included in part of the subdivision.
Okay. Also, what, in the landscaping, what does the applicant mean by native grass? Is that just, is it going to be seeded in some way with native grass? I mean,
Yeah, there's a native seed mix generally that you put down.
Okay, so it won't be it won't be the...
Yeah, turf is kind of, the rolled out, and then the native is kind of, there's just a seed mix that's kind of native to the area.
Okay. So is there any kind of maintenance that's done on?
Generally, no, not with a native mix. It's generally not require any sort of irrigation.
Okay. I was also wondering, I guess previous use of the property was for extraction activities, and I was wondering if there's any need to check for environmental contamination, like for water or explosives, toxic chemicals and minerals due to the mining activities or extraction activities?
Jason can probably refer to this. It looks to me like it's mostly just been gravel and sorting and those kind of things.
That's correct. That's my understanding too of the use. There wasn't any sort of chemicals or anything like that in terms of the processing. It was more just gravel that was almost directly pulled out and hauled off.
Okay.
So there wasn't any kind of operation that would require any of those sort of chemicals or anything like that on site.
Okay. Oh, and then on 19.04, under setbacks, it says there the setbacks are 8 per side or 16 total. Shouldn't it be 8 by 20? 20 feet for single-family homes? And also the rear says 25 feet, or shouldn't the rear be 25 feet and not 30 feet on your 19.04?
You can always propose increased setbacks if you wish.
No, I'm just going right off the code.
Well, I can look at the code, but if an applicant wants to come in and on a plat require setbacks that are greater than the minimum required, they can certainly do that, which I guess they're doing with the rear yard setback. On the side yard.
Side yard, this is R19 or R10.
It's R110.
Yeah, so I'm just looking off of the...
Sides are 8 and 20, so 8 and 12.
8 and 12.
Combined for 20 is 8 and 12. I think that's what they're trying to say.
Okay, yeah, so it says 8 and 16 on the packet. So I was wondering if you're requesting a variance, but,
No.
or was it just a typo?
It's either a typo or maybe it's 16 total between the two structures.
Okay.
I don't have the plat right in front of me, so I can't tell you exactly what the legend is, but I will double check that for sure to make sure that it's consistent, at least consistent with the code. Again, they can have further restrictions that they place on themselves if they wish. What's in the code is in the minimum. So I'll just make sure that, in fact, they at least meet the code.
Okay, all right. Yeah, because otherwise I guess I won't... Okay, I see what you're saying. So they're restricting in that they want to make it smaller, but I thought we don't want to make it smaller. It's a minimum 820, right? So...
Right, it's the combination of two sides would be 20, so once that have at least 8, then it'd be 12 on the other.
Okay.
You go 10,
Yeah.
so you're 20, so at least 8 on the side.
Okay.
That's an easy condition for you to make that staff can follow up on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's
Yeah, we just want to be in compliance with code. So whatever that is, that's what we weren't asking for a variance, and if it came out that way, it was unintentional.
Okay.
We're happy to
Yeah,
build
I
code.
thought maybe it might have been a typo or just an oversight. If it is the 8 by 12 or 8 by, that then confuses me because I'm just going by the code where it says 820,
Yep.
8/20, and then I just want to...
We will make any revision to make it whatever the code says, and
So I would like to make a condition if the rest of the planning commission is okay in that the setbacks follow the code or explain why they're different. Because, and again, the rear setback is minimum supposed to be 30 and it's supposed to be 25 and you have 30. If you want more, then I guess that's fine.
and again, I don't know that was intentional either.
Okay. It's just, it's administrative.
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's
Absolutely.
different than I need to know, so.
For sure, thank you.
And then what kind of fence is the applicant planning to put in? There's a comment somewhere that says that it will be determined by the applicant. And
Which fence in particular are you speaking of, Commissioner?
Page number. I guess it was the fence along,
Is along Harbor?
Yeah.
And I think there's homes that face onto that, correct? I don't have it in front of me, but of course, what I'm thinking is that they don't back onto Harbor. I think they actually front onto Harbor. So there wouldn't be fences there. I wonder what fence.
Specifically in the landscape plan, right?
Okay.
that's the last question, by the way.
Well, you can go ahead and talk about other things while
Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I just have two things. Actually, I had three, but Ken covered the one already. On the very bottom of the Planning Commission staff report, this is dated August 15th, 2018, it says Kimber Gamberzak as planning director.
Yeah, I changed that.
Okay.
Yeah, I apologize. It's just the template that I used had her name on it.
Okay, that's all right. The other thing, there's a diagram of the property. I think it's page 24. It has a road on the one part of it, but it looks like it's, I'm not sure that it's lining up exactly. Is this?
Is that the lake?
Well, I think,
Yeah, Harbor Parkway, is that what you're referring to?
no, I think it's supposed to be it's not necessarily Foothill Boulevard or Mountain View. Is that on the diagram, is that where it's going to be? It doesn't, on this picture, it looks like it's further than it is on the,
It is.
diagram.
What you're seeing is probably an earlier version, which did show, this alignment has moved several times, and so it was probably an earlier alignment that is shown.
okay,
Isn't it, it could be, I don't know exactly what, it may be an older version that was submitted, when the preliminary plat was originally submitted, the right-of-way was in a different place, but it doesn't affect this first phase anyway. So.
Okay.
But since then, it's been moved.
but that's the only thing I have.
Any others? Okay, I had one. Nora, if you take a look at some of the lots, the corner lots per code need to be a certain percentage
Yes.
larger. Can you tell me what
They are.
percentage that is?
10%.
Okay, because I was looking at a few of them, and I can tell you which ones I'm looking at. 309, for example, is 26.26 acres. Its adjacent property, 310, is .28, which is larger, so the corner is smaller, and there's a bunch of these.
They have to be larger than the minimum. So the minimum's 10,000 square feet, so they have to be 10% larger.
I understand in the code that the corner lot has to be larger than the adjacent
Adjacent
properties,
lots?
though. So I don't think that's been looked at, because I can see, I'll give you a few examples. 309, 117, 110, 116, 314, 219, 211, 204, 203.
Just to name a
I can give
few.
you those after, but yeah, all those are smaller than the adjacent lots.
Yeah.
It is small, it has to be 10% larger than the minimum lot size.
Is that what it is?
I think so.
I'll just ask that you review that, take a look at it, and make sure that this is in compliance with city code. And sorry. Are you looking something up? Because we can go on. Okay. I was trying to find it in the code as well.
Were those all corner lots
Yes.
pointed out? And what's
Every one of them.
What's the square footage on those? Can you see it?
I don't know that I see the square footage. I see the acreage in decimal point. Did you want me to tell you what those are? So if 309 was .26 versus 310 was 0.28, 117 is a quarter acre versus .26, which is adjacent to it. 110 is a quarter versus a quarter, which is next to it. It's supposed to be larger, so that's the same. 116 is a quarter versus a quarter.
Yeah, for instance, a .26 is 11,300. And so if that's on the corner, that's more than adequate for what the code would require. Our intent would be 10,000 square feet, the corner lots have to be 11,000.
Okay, good. As long as we're in compliance, great.
Yeah, I mean, I can't find it right this moment, but I appreciate it.
Yeah, I wanted to see it in the code, but I knew that there was something about them being larger than their adjacent lots, but maybe it was just larger than the minimum. That's fine.
That's the way we've interpreted it.
I'll entertain a motion.
Thank you.
I move to forward a positive recommendation of the City Council for the Westview Estates preliminary Plat A with the findings and conditions in the staff report, including the condition that they have a second access point before the 51st lot is developed, and that the setbacks meet the city code.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second from Ken Kilgore. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, everyone. Really appreciate it.
Yes.
Noah, thank you.
All right, moving right along. Item number 5, this is a business item. It's a plat amendment for Pelican Bay, Plat A, Lot 58, located at 254 East Skipper Lane. This is city initiated, and we'll turn the time over to Ryan Harris for our presentation.
Okay, so as you just said, this is a city-initiated plat amendment, and the main purpose of this plat amendment is to move a sewer easement. And so this is a map showing you where it's located. So it's highlighted in red. It's down by the marina and the lake. And so the Pelican Bay Plat A was recorded on September 1st, 2000. And when it was recorded, there is a sewer easement that is located in the middle of the lot that we're discussing. And then when they put the sewer line in, the sewer line ended up going closer to the lot line. So the sewer line and sewer easement do not coincide with each other. And so the main purpose of this plat is to move the sewer easement so it coincides with the sewer line. And so this is just a quick slide that shows you where the sewer line is located. So as you can see, it's located close to the property line. And then it shows you where the existing sewer easement's located on the plat, the current plat. And then this is the proposed plat, and I highlighted in red where the easement will go. So it does coincide now with the sewer line. And as you can see, and it's close to the property line. And so the motions are for approval with the findings and conditions listed in the staff report, or the alternative motions can be continuance or denial. And that's the report.
All right, thank you for your presentation. We'll turn this over to the Planning Commission for comment. Any concerns, questions, Ken?
I'm assuming this, is the owner aware of the amendment and okay with it?
The owner signed the application.
Okay. In 19.13 in the staff packet, the process says that the planning director is the land use authority for plat amendments, so why is the planning commission doing this?
That was a typo. So it is the planning commission. So with plat amendments, if it's adjusting property lines, then it's the planning director. But if it's dealing with movement of easements, then the planning commission is the decision maker.
Okay. That's it for me. Thanks.
Any other questions or concerns on this?
Who's the property owner? It's not listed in the county record. It says Saratoga Springs City.
It's slipping my mind. That's my wife. Okay, I got it right here.
They've seen it. Are they okay with the movement of the easement?
Yes, I've met with the property property
Okay.
personally.
Okay. County record says that the city owns it. Just FYI.
Kendall.
That's not what, yeah, it's, the property owner is Christian Kendall.
Okay.
The city owns the easement.
Yeah, I'm looking at the county record right now.
Well, they're signing the plat amendment, so yeah, they have to be okay with it.
I got nothing.
All right. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the Pelican Bay Plat A, Lot 58, plat amendment, located at 254 East Skipper Lane, with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated August 23rd, 2018.
We have a motion from Commissioner Steele. Do we have a second?
Second.
Commissioner Cunningham? Any questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Good job, city. Okay, let's go on to item number 6. This is a public hearing. This is a neighborhood plan for North Shore, located north of Old Saratoga Road, west of 2300 West. And we'll turn the time over to Nora Shepherd for the presentation.
Okay, so we have talked about this particular application quite a number of times. There's a little bit of, so as you know, it's located just north of the lake and generally west of most of the development in the city. It's gone through a number of different processes, including annexing the property, a portion of the property into the city that has been completed and recorded and is all good. Creation of the mixed residential zone, which is the zoning designation that was placed on the annexed property. Then a rezoning of property that was already within the city limits from agriculture to the mixed residential. Planning Commission had a work session on the neighborhood plan on June 28th. City Council had a work session on June 17th. And they have they've tried to incorporate comments from the Planning Commission and the City Council into their revised neighborhood plan. The latest one was received on August 9th. And there have been a couple revisions between the City Council consideration. And again, I just wanted to remind everyone, myself included, about what a neighborhood plan is, because it's a new thing. It's something that this is the first time it's being used because it's part of the mixed residential zone. And after we're through with this process, we will probably come through and ask for some amendments, because you don't really know how something's going to work until it's actually processed. But just a reminder of the intent is to provide residential neighborhoods displaying a mix of housing types and open space types that allow for lifestyle choices and opportunities for as wide a range of demographics as possible. There's also a heavy emphasis on character and theming within the mixed residential zone. And it provides opportunities with a mix of primarily residential uses that generally comply with Title 19. And it's different than a planned community zone, because when you do a planned community, you have a community plan, which is in essence your zoning document. So it kind of replaces Title 19 in some situations. And what the desire was to try to have a mixed residential zone which has projects that generally comply with Title 19. So things like architecture and open space and all of those things landscaping is all per code. And there is some increased flexibility in a couple of those things that are actually outlined in the mixed residential zone, but the rule of thumb is that they need to meet the existing provisions of the code. Project description, this is all in your neighborhood plan, 136.7 acres, a total of 1,156 units. There are a number of different product types, including single-family, townhomes, both front-loaded and rear-loaded, and then some apartments that are yet undefined. There's a parcel that is designated for a multifamily product. There's also a harbor park that is being dedicated to the city that's 19.6 acres. This is just a visual from the neighborhood plan of generally where the different products are going. As you can see that most of the single family is up in the west corner, and that's adjacent to other existing development. So it kind of feathers out to that, and then the cottages are the next one, which are single-family lots, smaller single-family lots, and then we get into the townhomes and the multifamily. This is their open space plan, and at your last presentation, they gave an extensive presentation on their open space amenities, including all the different kinds of parks and signs and all those kinds of things. And they are very aggressively following a nautical theme, and they're really achieving their theming and character plan through their signs and their amenities and their open spaces. And if you'll recall, there are a number of different kinds of open spaces that all have a nautical theme. All of their signs and directional signage carries through with that theme. There has been a slight change in the site plan. I need a pointer or something. Anyway, so if you can point to North Shore Boulevard that goes right down the middle to the roundabout. No, the other way, up and down. No, okay. That one, okay. It's on its side. So that particular road has been relocated slightly. And that intersection has been relocated, and the reason that was done is because there was a problem with the between two intersections where there could be signalization. Is it that road? Yeah. And so that road was shifted. Therefore, some of the open space areas, they're the same. They've just shifted locations slightly. They still have. They're still spread throughout the community, and they're still anticipated to be phased along with the community amenities with the development, so that there's community amenities throughout and timed consistent with the build-out. But that was a change. That's the major change in this plan from what you looked at during the work session, and that was done really at the city engineer's request, and has to do with spacing and signalization in intersections. I actually think it works a little better for the project. So your options are, as usual, positive recommendation to the city council with findings and conditions, a continuance with some direction as to what additional information you might need, and a negative recommendation to the city council. There is a public hearing that is required for a neighborhood plan. The only public hearing is before the planning commission, so this is the public hearing. It will go to the city council. There's no public hearing required at that stage. If you have any questions, Travis and Greg Haas are here, and they'd be more than happy to try to answer those questions. We've seen this before. They have attempted to make some changes to their architecture in response to both input by both City Council and Planning Commission. They've changed some of the color palettes. They have included some multifamily product in their in the neighborhood plan that actually shows some typicals of some of their multifamily product. In the previous versions, they only had the single-family product shown. So they have made some changes.
Thank you for the presentation, Nora. We had one question here, then we'll go to Gordon and then we'll bring in the, if you want, you can come forward, the applicants. Ken?
Yeah, so regarding that road placement change, was that to preserve the roundabout or to put in a signal?
It's to meet the spacing.
It's to eventually, so their traffic impact study says that eventually a signal would be warranted at that intersection, but the master plan already calls for a signal at Saratoga Road and 145. And so the intersection where they had it would have been too close to the other signal.
Okay.
So it's a matter of signal spacing to get them to function adequately. And so with the plan for that signal to be warranted in the future, or that intersection to be warranted for a signal in the future, we recommended that it be moved farther to the west to space those signals.
Was it in response to the traffic studies?
Yes.
Yeah, that's great. Okay, thank you.
The original location was, and get the cursor back up, somewhere right in here. And they just shifted it, which would be west to this location there.
Gordon, did that resolve your question too?
No.
Go ahead.
Just this afternoon, I got out of we're in the throes of master planning this whole area because obviously it's a green area with regard to development. Master planning the storm drain through this area, and we need to add one condition to our staff report, the engineering staff report, for the project to accommodate some pass-through storm drainage from the property to the north.
Did you get some first-hand experience from that storm yesterday? Is that what happened?
Yeah, that was pretty exciting.
Okay, so our applicants, would you please introduce yourselves and your name and address for the record?
Chriselle Travis, DR Horton, 12351 South Gateway Park Place, Draper, Utah 84020.
Greg Haas with Somas, 4179 South Riverboat Road, Salt Lake City, Utah.
Great. Did you have something you wanted to add to the presentation?
No, we're just mainly here to answer some questions if you guys have them and to hear the public input from the public hearing. I would request that I get a copy of Gordon's report. I haven't seen that yet.
He'll happily get it to you.
I think that's what
Call
he
me
was
so
trying to
I'm
say.
aware of some of them, but this is new, so.
Yeah, so we just,
Right.
yep,
That's totally
we just,
fine.
your engineer was part of that discussion,
Okay,
so,
That's
yeah,
great.
I can,
Okay, this is a public hearing, so we're going to open up the public comment for item number 6 right now, the neighborhood plan for North Shore. If you have some comments, come forward, keep your comments to about 3 minutes. Tell us your name and address for the record. No one today. Okay, we'll close public comment, and we'll open this up to the Planning Commission for comment. Commissioner Steele.
I'll go first. Mine are short.
Okay.
Are you still doing farmhouse in this?
oh, sorry, yes.
Is that more of a, this may have been talked about before, and maybe I missed it, but isn't that more of a legacy farm product?
It's really, well, I mean, it's what we themed Legacy Farms from, but it's not intended to be. It is a very popular style, and we're using it along the Wasatch Front in all of our communities.
Okay.
And so it's one of those local requests.
It's not a code issue, so I just was curious more than anything. And then that north-south road, the one we just were talking about, that's a public road, correct?
Correct. Most of the roads within, within
The back
North Shore.
roads are the private roads, right?
The private roads are most of the ones off of.
Highway roads?
Yes. The ones that are dead ends are mostly private.
No, we've reviewed this many times, I don't know anything else.
I think it's you, Commissioner Steele. All right, Ken.
Let's see. Okay, I have, on the general description of the, of the general description of the packet, the North Shore neighborhood plan, I have let's see, how do I say this? I'm a little confused by the second paragraph. Basically, it's the last sentence of, no, it's the second to the last sentence of the second paragraph where it says, the MR zone allows for a blended density of up to 12 dwelling units per acre if the property is proposed to have a future transit stop. So when I check the code, mixed residential zone allows for, allows the city council to approve density up to 12 units per acre, but only by 2 units per acre for each of 3 specific criteria. First one is adjacency to a future transit stop, which is what you have, so that's 2 right there. And then open space consideration is another, so you have that as well. You're providing more open space than...
That's 4.
So that's 4. Maybe I should stop the running count. Okay. And then the third, excuse me, is neighborhood commercial is the third. And it just appears that your draft neighborhood plan qualifies for 2 criteria on overall blended density of 10 units per acre. At least for now. It may be different. But I just felt that the second paragraph sounds like that the MR zone automatically allows for it, but actually it doesn't. It depends on what other, whether you meet the other 3 criteria. And even then, it only gives you 2 per. You see what I'm saying? So I think when I read that paragraph, it sounded like you were almost guaranteed that you get that because that's what the zone says, but actually that's not how I interpret the zone. So I was wondering if we could maybe clarify a little bit more or make it clear that it depends on whether you meet all 3 criteria in order to get those extra 6 dwelling units per acre.
You only get an extra 4. Well, you can get it to up to 6, but they understand that for sure.
Okay.
And I think the council understands it. So I think it's the wording in the description that probably is confusing to you. So maybe they can clarify that to reflect the code that the additional units are discretionary based upon the city council.
Yeah, because it sounds like in the description, in the second paragraph, it sounds like they automatically get the 12 as long as they have a few things, but it's not true. You have to have all 3 of those in order to get that 12. Otherwise, you only get 10. So that's why I just would like that clarification if you could do that.
We appreciate that, and I think we're at 8.45, so we don't really need it, but I appreciate your comments, and we will make that clarification. We can clean up that sentence and wording.
Okay, yeah, no, I know you're within code right now, but there were areas within the neighborhood plan that talked about a possible need for more, like 10 point something. And so again, you get the 10, but not the extra, based on the current criteria.
Right. So we do have areas where there's 20 or 30 to the acre because it's a blended density.
Yeah,
right.
I understand.
Okay.
But yeah. Otherwise, it sounds like from this description. I know you just abbreviated. Just abridged it. Yeah. So that's fine. But I think it should be clear that you don't automatically get 12. Okay. And then just one last question. Or actually, just a comment. I think with the dedication of 19.6 acres to the city for the future harbor, I was just wondering, is the city council in favor of granting additional density? Because I think they should. I think, or allowing that, having that meet the criteria for that one criteria.
Yes.
I think. So it sounds like they're going to do that because it sounds great.
No decisions have been made, but in concept, they understand the request.
Right.
Okay, that's good.
And then, once this ends up at their meeting, then they'll have...
Annexation
Okay.
requires.
Perfect.
So we've already
All right, that's it for me. Thanks.
Thank you.
First of all, it talks about parking and the extra parking that you may want in the future, and part of that is because it's a walkable community. I take exception to that because the U.S. Department of Transportation's Federal Highway Administration defines a walkable community as one where it's easy and safe for people to walk to grocery stores, medical clinics, professional offices, and other services. And I don't think you meet but maybe to the school, maybe, and to the church, and to transit. But you sure don't have medical clinics, grocery stores, professional offices, and other services. So that's a comment. Then, I'm changing some of my thought on some of this. On page 4, extension should be spelled E-X-T-E-N-S-I-O-N instead of E-X-T-I or T-E-N-T-I-O-N. What does local, on page 7, what does local precedent mean?
Things that are typical for the area, other types of construction, architecture, local precedents, things that are in other projects, colors, product types.
Okay.
From Saratoga Springs.
Okay, and I have a problem with that because, and my note says surely not Legacy Farms precedent. We will become very boring if we see the same architecture in this development as we do in Legacy Farms. And it could possibly lower the prices and the values of the homes that are already built in Legacy Farms. Page 8, who will be the North Shore Architectural Committee?
And while we're still developing and we're the declarant through the Homeowners Association, our architectural staff and myself will be the board.
Okay. And I too had the question, why do we have a farmhouse style as part of the North Shore nautical theme? And I know that it has been popular, but you could change the architecture, which you have done, and made it Cape Cod. Because if you lay one on top of the other, you can tell it's the same plan.
Correct. As a production builder, that's what we do. Correct. And the mixed residential zone requires that we have a variety of styles. We can't just build one style. There's a variety that is required, and that's why we're offering the 5 that we've put into the plan.
Okay. And I even understand that. But you're going to paint, are you still planning to paint those white?
Yes, possibly.
It's not in your color palette.
The color palette is not extensively in this book. What you see there is not all the color palettes that can be used. Those are just 2 examples.
It doesn't say that. I'd like to see what you're going to use. And you haven't given us that. I don't know if you're going to put red and blue like you have in the others. I don't know whether you're planning to put, and I just noticed this coming in, some of your homes have the wrap around the side, but the back is stucco.
Correct.
And very frankly, it's not a pretty sight to go down Redwood Road and see that. And I would hope that there is no way we're going to see that down there.
So page 31 is the architectural facade plan. That'll show you which units may have stucco on the back and which may not. So we'll address any street exposures, and they may have stucco depending on the style of the architecture that's used. If it's craftsman, if it's a traditional, that's a material for those architectural styles. But there will be a variety of styles offered, and you won't see the same house right next door to each other. And just to know, this is a step above your Title 19. We're not required to do this. We're doing this because we've been asked and we know that it's important.
It's in the code now.
So
it's in the code that you need to address those back sides. And so, and it really wasn't, I was not looking at the back of a house. I was looking at the end of the house was the siding.
The sides.
As we passed by, the back of it was stucco, but it wasn't facing a street that I was seeing, but you could still see it, and it looked really tacky. And so that's the reason I'm really kind of going to go through some of your things in your architecture. Your Cape Cod, yes, you can call it Cape Cod, but it really, all you've done is taken the farmhouse and made it look a little different with some shingles.
Ken was so happy that they added the Cape Cod.
Well,
Sorry, I just wanted to...
I agree. I was glad. I had hoped for more. And you're not supposed, there's a section in the code, well, let me go through my notes. In one place on page 12, it talks about stone is not typically found on Cape Cod architecture. On page 12, which gives the materials for Cape Cod, wall materials may include stucco, horizontal lap sidings, shake shingle siding, cultured stone, and brick. Which is it? I mean, you contradict yourself within one page.
I don't see it as a contradiction. It's the ability to use those materials if we so choose, because there are some Cape Cods that have stone on them, but there are others that are all lap siding. And so the statements in the professionals that wrote the code portions and these sections, that we're aware of the wording.
Okay, it just seems like a contradiction within a page. On page 14, I really like the attached unit elevation, probably better than any I've seen. What bothers me is we're using all but one of the plans and types of architecture that you used in Legacy Farms. And I know this is something I heard the council say, and I've said, I didn't want to see this become Legacy Farms East. And that's what it looks like it's going to be. And if that's it, I really can't support it. I don't think you have met some of the criteria in the code, and I'll go over that in a little bit.
We have introduced 3 new townhome products, so it's not all the same.
Thank heavens.
Well, I mean, that information is coming. When the plats come up, you'll get that kind of information. But
okay, will we also see how you're going to treat the backs of the homes with the plats? Okay.
Yes.
All right. Let's see. On page 15, second column.
Commissioner Still, if I can ask, just so staff can track what comments you're making, the part of the code that you also believe that they're not meeting.
Okay, I have some.
It's important because I'm trying to look for that as far as the architectural plan. I don't see any specific standards that says they have to have one, but it doesn't say it must meet these standards.
Okay.
So I'd appreciate, I mean, that's good
When
for
you
staff,
let me finish,
so we can follow up on that.
I have that all copied off.
No, and we appreciate your comments. We just need to track along with the code and see how we can follow up with those comments.
Okay, on page 15, second column, it should be is encouraged, not encouraged.
Did you find it?
It's in the second column.
Thank you.
I have page 16. I don't like the colored picture. The porch is not usable. And that's one thing that I did find that on the Eastern Shore architecture and most shore architecture is that you have a usable porch. And so it shows on your black and white perspectives, but in your colored, it does not. And so I'm concerned about that. Oh, the farmhouse modern at the top of the page needs to go away. One thing, I don't think you have a lot big enough to put that on. That's a 1950s modern, and it really doesn't fit anywhere.
Are you referring to page 17?
No, this is page 22.
Oh, you're in the modern, okay, sorry. You said farmhouse and I was confused.
Well, it says, I think it's called farmhouse modern.
So there's farmhouse and then there's modern. So
Okay,
they're two
modern.
different styles.
And that top one with the modern, that's more like, as I say, it's a 1950s modern, and it's probably too wide for any of your lots, so I'm hoping it disappears. I think I had a compliment on that one, too. Oh, the depiction of the three-story units of the farmhouse, moderns, it really does seem to fit. I want you to know, I do like some things that you've done. I like your, you know, but...
This is the product that'll sit along Saratoga Road.
Okay, yeah. In that, the three-story units are a little tall, but that's a three-story unit, and, you know, you try what you can do to make it look less high, but it's going to be 3 stories. On page 28, you have got, you have that you will use masonry veneer, and all I want to make sure is that's not going to be stucco brick, is it?
Oh, second bullet, limited. I think that, no, it's masonry, it's meant to be stone. You can see in that elevation that it's the stone at the bottom of those, on the wainscot.
I just want to make sure. I think you want to make sure, too. Okay, I am going to read, and I am sorry, I don't have the code section, but I will read directly from the code.
Could you give us an idea of where you're finding it?
You know, well, wait a minute.
Can I respond to your color palette question on what colors we would be using and that we haven't clarified that? The first sentence on that page says colors will be appropriate for the architectural style of each dwelling unit. So if it's a farmhouse style, it will use farmhouse colors.
I really would like to see what we're going to get. We're buying a pig in a poke if you don't show us.
If it's...
What's a poke?
That's required by the code.
A bag. A southern saying. Well, I've got the whole code here. I thought I had it all organized, but apparently I don't.
Would you like a minute to go over that, and we'll see if there's any other comments?
Oh, I've got some more. Not too many more, though.
I'm not saying we're going to end with you, but if you wanted to find your code references, then...
Okay, actually, the first one, identifying. I copied and pasted, so I'm going to have to, let's see. Okay, here's the code and okay, what I'm going to say is, read out. Identifying the organizational design framework showing a clearly recognizable neighborhood character and theme while also distinguishing the neighborhood from others and cohesively unifying the neighborhood through its distinctive design elements. Community character and theme elements may include the following: general architecture, identifying the proposed architectural styles and themes, architectural facade plan, identifying the principal facade and secondary facades for each building lot. And to me, this is not, you're not, other than in your signage, you're not really distinguishing this neighborhood from others. And when you're using the same, some of the same plans, same elevations as you've used just up the road, I don't see that you're meeting that portion of it. And I think it's a mistake. This is an opportunity, and I don't think you're taking full advantage of that opportunity when you don't do a little bit more innovation in your design of the homes.
Architectural standards, okay.
And then,
That was part of the MR zone.
Reference?
okay, that
We're in 1916.
It's in the MR zone.
1916
Part of
under
the MR
architectural
code.
standards.
Should be 19413.
Are you in architectural standards? That's 1906.
no, right
in the
here.
MR.
This is under submission requirements.
Okay.
Yes.
She's reading from
The MR zone.
the code.
Where?
That's
19413.
Oh, that I just read.
1904-13 subsection 7, submission requirements.
Character requirements from neighborhood plan?
Yep.
Okay.
And then I have under architectural standards, and that also, and that's E. Under development standards, I believe. And I don't know that I need to read from that. I think the 7, number 7, under submission requirements, what I just read is the crux of it. You're not really distinguishing your neighborhood through its architecture as being different from the one you just did at Legacy Farms. And that bothers me. And I know that I've heard the council say that, and I've said it. I said it when you came through. And so in that respect, I am concerned. I'm going to ask you, what are you counting as open space? Because you have it marked off, but you can't count between buildings as open space. And have you?
Yes, we have counted between buildings, and we believe that we can, under your code, as you define different, and I don't have the code in front of me, so I don't know, but you have different types of open space definitions, and per those definitions, we're complying with those that are mentioned in the code. There's 5 or 6 different types of open space that can be defined.
Okay.
That's 1919.
And this is number 90 in the definitions. Open space means an open, landscaped, and improved area that is unoccupied and unobstructed by residential or commercial buildings, setbacks between buildings, parking areas, and other hard surfaces that have no recreational value. Can't use between buildings. And we've made that determination in other projects.
Can you tell me which projects those are?
Ivory Homes was one of them, that they wanted to count every bit of green that they could get a hold of, and it's just...
You're not counting between the houses, though.
No.
Just the spaces between the homes?
If it's common area, which is typically counted as open space for your code, that's being counted. But I'm not counting anything between single-family homes. If it's not green on this map, it's not being counted.
Right, but
And if you look at the way those are oriented, a lot of those are places for people to walk, and they're very linear. You'll see that they're purposeful. They go from park to park.
That's fine, but
That's the intent of open space, is for people to be able to use it and go from one place to another.
we have not allowed it between multifamily buildings. There,
Not true. I believe you have.
not since I've been on here.
Okay. Well, we'll double check it and we'll go through it with Nora.
Again, Commissioner Steele, do you have a code reference for that? Because we really need that.
Yes, it's number 90 in the definition.
It's 190. It's 190. 1902 190 is where she was reading from.
Thank you.
So how does the planning staff feel about it? Because I could totally see the applicant's point of view. I mean, I understand Commissioner Steele's point of view because of the code, but also it could be interpreted in that, for example, if between large, say like multi-family or apartment buildings, they put, the builder puts a barbecue area between the buildings, because it is a walkable area and all that, then that should count as open
Right.
space. So how does the planning staff interpret that?
Well, and if you look at the open space plan, thank you, Dave, you can see that what they're showing as open space are the linear areas between that are sort of continuous. So it's part of their open space and, conceivably circulation. I can tell you that what they have proposed is well beyond the minimum standards required in 1919. And they don't even count the 19.6 acres that they're dedicating. So we could go back and try to recalculate it if you feel that's necessary. I think that if we were to take out those small areas, it would most likely still meet the minimum requirements, but we could do that if that's what the commission decides.
Well, and it's the setbacks, like even on the corners. I believe that not having a plan with dimensions is tough, because I can't tell if those green spaces are 10 feet, 20 feet, 30 feet. That makes a difference. And so I would just ask staff to check and see if that is, part of the setbacks, which then they shouldn't be able to count. And if it's part of even setbacks on the sides, I see some areas where it looks like they're counting the area next to a street.
You have a valid point, and it comes down to interpretation of the code, and that is a requirement and that's feedback that we have given other applicants. I can back up Commissioner Steele on that. You haven't been dealing with traditional Title 19 because you were doing Legacy Farms, which came under the district area center or the city center district area plan. That's something as staff that we can follow up on. Thank you for the comment.
And it would be appropriate for us to follow up on later phases of the process. I mean, again, we're still at a very high level, so to be looking at setbacks as you're requesting is a level of minutia that's just not available yet.
Right.
No, we don't do that normally in the neighborhood plan.
Preliminary plat phase is when we would be really looking at all those dimensions carefully.
Right. And as I say, I can't tell on a scale like that. There's no way to be able to know how big some of those areas are.
Yeah, we don't want to set them up for failure, so, you have a valid point. We'll work with them to see if we can have some reasonable assurance that that's not going to happen.
But I also think the point that Nora was getting to earlier is really critically important, is that there is a really large open space bank that is still going to make up for a lot of these credits, and at this level, we can't determine that detail. We appreciate the comment. We will certainly make sure that we check that box when we get to that level.
Okay, and I have one other comment, and it will be, I guess this is where you're not to set you up for failure. Is the corner lots will still be required to be 10% larger than the interior lots in that particular zone. Is that correct? And the reason we want that is for the clear sight triangle.
They will have to meet the clear sight triangles. This is, it's the MR zone, it's a different zone, it's not like an R110 or R19. And I have to find in the code where that reference is to the 10% larger. I couldn't find it off the top of my head. So there's not the minimum lot size in the MR zone like there is in the R110 and the R19. So it's different in that respect.
Right.
But they will definitely have to meet clear sight triangles.
Okay. And if it's applicable, then like in their single family?
Again, there's no minimum lot size. So to say that you have to provide the corners at 10% beyond the minimum, when there's really technically no minimum.
Okay. Well,
But I
that's
understand what
something,
you're saying.
that's something we need to look at.
Commissioner Steele, I think the code that was in place for the 10%, larger size and the corners was in place before we even introduced code for this clear sight view triangle. It's been around for a while, so
Oh, yeah,
we'll have to
it's
find
been-
the reference. but-
Yeah. And I'll have to look it up. I'm not exactly sure where it is. Okay, I think that is the end.
Thank you.
Aren't you glad?
In future, when we're making decisions on administrative, I request that if you have something that is in the code and if you're quoting the code, please bring forth the references as well so we can document it and so we can have teeth for it, okay? Anybody else? Any other comments?
Can I ask a question?
Yes.
You guys have all deliberated over this before, and this is only, I'm still trying to get up to speed here, but in the city, across the city, there is already like a set amount of high-density housing that will be approved, so if 100% of the land, we have an X percent that is predetermined on how much will be high-density versus other types of zones?
So you're talking about Prop 6, basically?
Yes.
I'm going to let Mark address that. He's the expert. It has to do with, actually, the land use designations. It talks about the general plan is what it refers to.
Yeah.
But I'm going to let Mark talk about that.
So statistically speaking, according to Prop 6, we are deficit multifamily housing by several percentage points based on built and recorded lots. So Prop 6 is, it's part of our general plan, it's advisory. We are certainly trying to do our best as far as making decisions relative to that. However, at this point, if you wanted to take a very strict interpretation of Prop 6, I would say you should not be approving any single-family homes until we reach the appropriate multifamily densities as specified. I'm not making that recommendation because...
You're being sarcastic, right?
No, I'm saying that mathematically that's how it sits as of today, and I don't believe that was the intent of Prop 6, nor am I recommending that that is the action you take. I will say, though, that there is housing that is available within the multifamily according to methodology that was established by Prop 6.
Interesting. Thanks for that.
I don't think we want to go to a hardline interpretation because technically I think we're about 4% over on single-family housing as of today's date, which would mean that we would not like the result that that's forcing us.
Kevin, I see you were really uncomfortable over there.
I would like to contradict, no. Mark and I contradict each other all the time, so don't be taken aback by this, but since I drafted the proposition, well, I didn't draft the first version of it, but I modified the proposition, but it says no more than, so it's okay to have a deficit. It's okay not to have that much multifamily, but really, Mark is correct, and the general plan is an advisory document, and the time to really look at Proposition 6 is when you're making a legislative decision, not an administrative decision. The legislative decision has been made to allow the number of units in this project, and so that's when you look at it, and we've done that before. The Planning Commission has made negative recommendations based off of, the immense density that some projects have proposed. And that's the time to look at the proposition. And then also, one other point, Commissioner Anderson, the proposition doesn't address density, it addresses unit types. So if you have these small cottage lots, you're going to be perfectly compliant with Prop 6, but it could be a lot of density, which this project is. So the proposition doesn't speak to density, it's unit types.
It's a complex question, and if you'd like, I'd happily sit down with you and share with you percentages of where we're currently
So
set.
this body, density's been approved by the city council with the rezone, correct?
Yes, it was.
So it's not a question for us?
It's really not a question for you, because it's not that legislative decision.
Okay, any other comments?
Yeah, I think all of us are trying to catch up from Commissioner Steele's code references, and but what I I just have one comment, and it's I think you have a really impressive amenity package, and I mean, it appears that you meet code with those things, but you could do that in a lot of different ways. But I think carrying your theme out throughout, with the diversity of the amenity package you have, clubhouse, splash pad, pool, trails, sport courts, pavilions, dog parks, hammock parks, and then when you combine the thematic elements of like the Driftwood Park, and I mean, it's subjective, but I hope it looks something like that. I hope you're not showing us a picture and there's like one little piece of driftwood, something like that. And so I think that's really cool. I think it's going to be a really good feature in the community. I hope it looks as good as some of the pictures that are in there, and I hope it has the diversity that is in the packet. I think the residents will really enjoy a lot of those elements.
Thank you.
And again, at the preliminary plat stage, you'll get a look at those parts in more detail.
Anybody else? Okay, so this has been a lot of fun. I'm sure you've enjoyed that, and
Always.
we would like you to know
the
that you're always welcome in the city. You've done great products in the past, and they're selling very well, and looks like you have good product. It looks like a lot of the comments that were made tonight, it seems, aren't really before us at this level in the neighborhood plan, or we'll see more of that later, but hopefully you'll take some of the feedback that you've heard and talk with city staff and work out some of those issues with open space and parking, et cetera. I'm sure you will. You've done it in the past, and I'm sure you'll do it again.
Thank you.
Those are all my comments.
Thank you.
And I will entertain a motion.
I move to forward a positive recommendation to City Council for the North Shore Neighborhood Plan with the findings and conditions in the planning staff packet, as well as with the additional condition that the project must accommodate storm drainage from the property to the north.
Does that work, Gordon?
Yes, thank you.
Sorry.
Pass-through flow is what it amounts to, is pass-through flow.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
Who wants it?
Okay.
Commissioner Steele, is that you?
I seconded.
Chris Karn?
I seconded.
Chris Karn has the second. Any question on the motion? Did you want to clarify that it's passed through?
Just to clarify then, the storm drainage pass-through from the property to the north.
Is that okay with the second?
Yes.
Any other questions on the motion?
Question, there were some specific code references that I believe staff said they would go back and look at. 19.02.19 was one of them in regards to open space.
It was 190.
Sorry, 190?
Yep.
And so how do we potentially reconcile that inside of a motion? Is that a condition
I didn't
that
think,
we'd ask?
I didn't consider that to be a condition.
I know you didn't, but this is a question on...
So has a motion been made and seconded?
The motion has been made and seconded. This is a question on the
Okay, so
motion.
now you've got a question on the motion. So the commissioner who made the motion could choose to amend the motion, and then the person who seconded would have to agree with that.
And my question is simply for, I suppose you, Kevin, is when there's a discrepancy, you had mentioned or supported Commissioner Steele that we hadn't done something in the past with certain applicants.
It was the
Staff
open
is
space between
interpreting
buildings.
it a little bit differently, and so how is that reconciled? The comment was staff would go back and look at that.
What I'd say is if Commissioner Kilgore would like to amend the motion, add that as a condition, that staff go and review that to make sure it's compliant. Staff would be, of course, willing to do that.
You could also...
Right now, part of the motion is pending, so the motion's been made without that condition,
Commissioner Kilgore,
really
would
up to
you
them.
be
Up to the commissioner who made the
amenable to include that as a condition?
But
Actually,
certainly, staff would look at that anyway, independent of what your motion
Before
is,
the
just to
preliminary
make sure that it's addressed.
So staff is going to have to address that regardless of a motion?
Yeah, because it's.
As a part of the preliminary
think
plat
yeah.
approval, which is a more detailed review, you could add a motion or ask Commissioner Kilgore to add a condition that says that during the preliminary plat review, that we review the definitions of open space and make sure that the calculation is consistent with the definitions.
I'm happy to withdraw that request until the preliminary plat.
Yeah, I actually prefer not to add that, because there were also in the previous, application, or no, in the first application that we saw, that we heard this evening, there were a couple code things that we brought up, and we didn't put it as a condition, because I figured the staff takes notes, and then they will cover it, and we'll see if it's corrected in the next time that we get to entertain our applicants. So I prefer not to make a change.
Thank you. Any other questions on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Aye.
We have one in the negative. That was Commissioner Steele.
And I would like to explain that.
Please do.
And it is number 7, submission requirements, and it's talking about the neighborhood character and theme and distinguishing the neighborhood from others.
The motion is passed, but perhaps you'd consider her thoughts about that, but that's really at your discretion and between you and the city.
Sorry?
Her comments were distinguishing this submission from others, so that's really up to them at this point.
Neighborhood.
Thank you very much. Okay, let's move on to item number 7.
Item number 7, you've got 3 things to look at here. We've got a general plan amendment, we have a rezone, and then we have a look at a concept plan, plat. Of course, that's just for informational purposes only at this point. This is a public hearing as well. The first request is to amend the general plan land use map, as you can see here on the screen. The arrow pointing to that section of that green, that rural residential. The applicant requests that be changed to low-density residential. This against some subject properties identified there in blue. So we'd be changing that to match the majority of the existing property as it is on the general plan map. The next request then is to rezone the subject property, take it out of the 3 zones of regional commercial, rural residential, and agricultural, and rezone that to R19. And the purpose of that is to then come back into the R19 zone and create a single-family subdivision, as you see here. Now, this is what you have in your packet. You see the hammerhead there? That would not be allowed, so the applicant has modified that since your packet went out. Make just a knuckle there, return that back to the street. So what the applicant is looking for is the R19 zone that would have 63 lots. Connections would be made to the adjacent properties of Star Haven, Dignity Care, the Stewart property, which is a vacant piece of property, which at one time was going to be part of this development. The Stewarts did not, the Stewarts backed out of the development. The proposed open space, when that time comes, again, open space, the amenities, that's addressed at plat stage. Again, you're looking at this just as informational purposes only. If the rezone is granted, what is the applicant planning on doing? So the amenities, we don't look at the amenities at this point. There's ample square footage as far as the open space requirements go. 2.49 acres of total open space will be provided. That includes some space that is not on site. It's UDOT property, which will then come to the city. They get partial credit for improving those things. Basically, all the numbers we've looked at, everything we looked at for the R19 zone, should the general plan amendment be approved and the rezone be approved, what the applicant is proposing then to do as the R19 subdivision meets all the criteria in the code itself. And then, of course, your recommendation, we recommend a positive recommendation. You also have the options to continue that or to forward a negative recommendation onto the city council.
Is that your presentation? Okay, thank you, David. Is the applicant here? Hello. Would you like to introduce yourself, your name and address for the record?
My name is Joe Colosimo, 11795 South, Taitland Rose Lane, Draper, Utah.
Hello, Mr. Colosimo. Would you like to add anything to the presentation that's been given today?
No, Dave did an excellent job.
Okay. This is a public hearing, so we're going to open up public comment right now for item number 7 for the general plan amendment, rezone and concept plan for Arcadia Springs. If anybody would like to come forward, this is your time. Okay, given that there isn't any public comment, we'll close public comment at this time and we'll open this up to the Planning Commission.
The only comment I have is it's good to not, or to not see that narrow band of regional commercial, next to residential like it was for so long.
At one time when that was, the only access out west and there was more traffic, it probably made sense to have that as, or could have been, a regional commercial development, but with the road realignment now and everything, it
completely sandwiched in between residential.
It's probably not an appropriate place for regional.
It put a smile on my face when I saw that. I do have one other question. Since I live in this community, in the past, I believe the community was invited to some sort of open house or meeting, discussion. Was that, did you invite the community to participate in anything like that?
I did not. I'm wondering if it was the Dignity Care people or Star Haven.
For single family, the code doesn't require an open house for single family development.
Great.
The applicant could have done it at, if they wanted to, they'd have every right to do that, but it's not required.
Okay.
I think the developer should be made aware that no more than 50 units can be constructed until a connection is made to one of the streets that's stubbed onto the plan. I know that on either side there's streets, but one of those is going to have to.
Yeah, because we have 3 developments, their timeframes could be vastly different when they develop, and so obviously, the 50 would be the requirement.
And I understand that.
Okay, great. Thank you.
Ken.
So looks like currently the applicant is 14 points short of the amenities. And I was just wondering, does the applicant think that the amenities points can be met at preliminary plat stage?
I realize I came up a little bit short, but yes, I think I can meet the amenity package to get the 14 points.
Great. Okay, thank you. That's all I have.
I have 2 things.
Okay.
I'm glad that we got rid of the hammerhead. That was giving me grief when I was looking at it the first time. The other thing I have is I counted 15 can complies. Hopefully when we come back for the preliminary plat, there's...
Yeah, a lot of that stuff, there are things that will comply, but at this stage, what we're looking at now, those really aren't addressed at this point.
Okay.
So.
Anyway, I'm just saying, I would like to see none when it comes through for final. Thanks.
Anyone else? All right, I'll entertain a motion.
Mr. Chair, I move to forward to the City Council a positive recommendation regarding the Arcadia Springs General Plan Use Map Amendment and Rezone as outlined in Exhibit 1 with the findings and conditions in the staff report dated August 16, 2018.
We have a motion from Brian Chapman. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a second from Sandra Steele. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you for your time. All right, let's go to approval of minutes. Everybody had a chance to look at August 9th.
It was a great meeting.
It's a short meeting, right?
38 minutes.
Apologize for not being there. I was out in the hospital. I'll entertain a motion.
I move to approve the minutes of August the 9th, 2018 as presented.
We have a motion from Sandra Steele.
Second.
Second from Commissioner Kern. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
I abstained from voting. I was not present at that meeting. Reports of action.
All right. Yes. Are you working on those then right now? switch computers here. Let me go to this one. Oops, gotta close out this one. Okay, this is what we just looked at, Arcadia Springs, report of action. This will go on to the council at their next meeting. Positive recommendation, staff report will be included. The applicant did not present any additional information. There were no comments from the public. Planning Commission discussion, Kirk, you abstained from any comments. Sandy, the 50-unit maximum with one access. Ken, you had a question on the amenity points that they're short, and those will be met at a later stage. Yes. Oh, got 2 keyboards, 2 screens. Brian, good to eliminate the RC zone. Open house, not required. Chris, no comment. Troy, good to eliminate Hammerhead. Had a can compliance question. Those will be addressed at later stages. Bryce, no comment. Then the motion by Commissioner Chapman to approve with the findings and conditions in the staff report. Commissioner Steele seconded, then all voted aye. How'd we do?
I will entertain a motion to accept the reports of action.
I move that we... thank you. I move that we approve the report of action as presented tonight for Arcadia subdivision.
We have a motion. Sandra Steele. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second from Ken Kilgore. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Commission comments?
I have one, and I was going to make it last time. When I was on the road watching on YouTube here the last couple times, I noticed that somebody had left a mic open, and you could kind of hear almost everything that they were discussing. I think it might have been the applicant, but just a reminder, be careful that if your mic is on, if you're saying something, to turn it off. Yes, it does.
I reminded the council of that many times.
Commissioner Wilkins? No.
I'm just kidding. I said I couldn't hear what you're saying.
Nora has some reports of action as well we'll need to go through. And so we'll, if you want to take a quick breather here, stand up for a minute.
You want to bounce back?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go to commissioner comments.
And
This is, this is for staff. Again, we have sandwich boards that are in the public right-of-way on the pavement in the construction area, just north of Fairway. And
Is that the sidewalk closed sign?
no. This is open house by me. And that is actually a road hazard at this point with that construction, and that needs to be removed.
Stroud, could you pass that on to code enforcement?
By, where's the area?
Fairway?
North of, just north of Fairway.
Fairway and Redwood Road, right?
Yeah, Fairway and Redwood Road. It's just,
The real estate ones?
yes, and there's a couple of them, but the sandwich board is the one that is it's blocking the shoulder of the road, which people are using these days.
I had one comment also.
Sure.
Excuse me, and it has to do with what Commissioner Steele had brought up as far as the code requiring or recommending, suggesting, requiring the individual characters of neighborhoods. And I thought it's a good point. It's a subjective point, and so I'm just wondering how we deal with that. I just got back last weekend from Highlands Ranch in Denver, and their homes, you could tell, the whole community looks really great. They're bigger than we are. They're almost the size of Provo, so the kind of money there is different, but, and by that I mean the type of construction is also different. But you could tell, just like in our neighborhoods, you could tell kind of what decade the neighborhoods were built in. The brown ones that are tan or such, what's that? Well, no, well, I'm thinking more just recent, since it pertains more to our city, but if it was built in the 20 teens, the neighborhoods tend to be brown or tan. If they're built today or later, then they tend to be gray. And it's like all the houses are gray, or all the houses were tan. And so, you know, I don't know if just by color you could distinguish neighborhoods, or it has to be architectural design or what, but I think that's something that we probably need to have some kind of a discussion sometime. Just to, you know, if we're going to use that piece of code and try to get developers to create product that's more varied, then there has to be some kind of objective criteria. And I think that might be something that we really want to at least think about, because when you do drive around other cities, you do see how, yeah, builders will come in and it'll all be one color palette, as opposed to some of the nicer home, or I shouldn't say nicer, but I don't know, some of the more varied homes, it's nicer visually, where the individual homes, and they're tract homes too, but they have more of an extensive color palette, and it doesn't look like it's all circus or whatever. It actually looks like something that will last for decades. And so, like my brother-in-law's house was built in 1990s, but it looks modern today because it doesn't look all gray, for example, or all brown, which then would have dated it, you know, to about 10 years ago. So I don't know. That's something that I think maybe as we look at our city, we just kind of think about how do we make that code, how do we create objective criteria to apply that code, since it's probably going to come up more and more since we no longer allow the DAP. So, or going forward, that is. So anyway, that's just my comment. Something to think about.
Any other comments?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments. We were emailed a lengthy list of upcoming actions or things that the commission will consider. Are those going to be broken up into, or is it going to be like a 8-hour meeting, or is there any idea?
I apologize, I was finishing something here. What was the question again?
Well, we were emailed by the city a lengthy list of agenda items that are coming up.
Is this from Tina?
Oh, it was applications. I thought.
Yeah, Tina's now sending that out to Planning Commission and Council. That'll show you resubmit. It should be labeled resubmittal. What's new? Just to give an idea of some of those things that are coming down the pipe.
The other just question I have first, I really liked in the staff packets for a while where we had in the sidebar, you know, the community plan, the village plan, and what step we were at. I found that helpful because then it kind of put into context what I should be worrying about at that meeting or not. And I'm wondering if it just wouldn't help all of us be more efficient if staff would be willing to put together just like a one-sheet document that listed, you know, on the community plan, here's the things you should be concerned about. In a village plan or, you know, the preliminary plat, here's the things you should be concerned about. So when it comes to this meeting, we're not extending beyond ourselves, discussing things that we will be discussing 2 steps down the road when it really gets granular. So if staff would consider that, for me, that would be helpful.
I'd like to remind the planning director that we had a noticed item that did not get on our agenda, and we probably need to address that with continuance.
Go ahead and look at him.
I'm looking at our attorney.
Are we talking about Beacon Point?
No, I am talking about, it was on the public notice website that we would be hearing the code amendment for small wireless facilities.
That was last week.
No, that was a work session. This was for a public hearing, and it went on the.
Yeah, well, it looks like that got changed when I took it off, and then when it was noticed by the recorder's office, looks like we kind of crossed paths there, and so technically, I guess it was on for tonight as a public hearing.
Yes.
And so, if you want to continue that to the future meeting.
Do we need to do that, Kevin?
The planning commission? Sure.
It was-
Or staff can do that. You don't necessarily have to give us direction on that.
Okay, it's just, we need to continue it. Address the fact that it was
We'll just
noticed.
notice it again. So the notice has to happen on the agenda plus the public notice website.
Okay.
It's not, I mean, it has to meet all the requirements. If it doesn't
Okay.
meet one of them, then it hasn't technically been noticed, if that makes sense, so.
Great.
And nobody even came for the public hearing, so I don't think anyone's inconvenienced by it, and we'll notice it again on the agenda, public notice website, the paper, city's website. We'll do that all over again.
But to your point, in cases in the past where we have had a conflict or we've messed up or something and someone's shown up, we've let them give comment, so. But
Nobody.
as you can see, it's a full room tonight.
Standing, we got more.
Nora and Dave, are you about ready with your reports of action? Nora and Dave, are you ready?
Excuse me.
Almost? Well, if Nora's working, Dave, can you give us your director's report?
What do we got coming down the line? Les Schwab, working on the report on that. Les Schwab should be coming to you shortly. Hopefully they can get some corrections on that's at the crossing. I'd have to look at my...
Is this well by the Fat Cats?
Yeah, it's going to be just west, 2 lots west of Quick Quack. We have done some code enforcement on Quick Quack and Smith's actually as well. Now that we're talking about the crossing, the Quick Quack put out the orange garbage cans, which initially they had some just rubber roughneck, whatever, trash cans. I went over to wash my car and saw they had the orange balls. They did email me an invoice. They've ordered the correct garbage cans that were approved with the site plan. They should be delivered in a few weeks for there. Smith's had some signs that were up they were asked them to take down. They have taken down. They look like they're actually painted on the walls. They actually were not. There's some kind of vinyl type thing that went on the wall, because I went back and looked and there was no sandblasting, there was no paint covering up anything, so it had been some sort of vinyl decal that they put on there. There's still some signs there where I'm working with the Boyer Company to have Smith's remove the click list signs in the parking lot, the little pole signs. They were given a community plan amendment to put small signs on the wall of Smith's to get rid of those pole signs in the parking lot. They still have the signs in the parking lot.
So on that, if I could, I wanted to just kind of jump in because I think it's very consistent. The people that run the applications are the people that we work very closely with, and they come to know our code and our expectations, and they understand the importance of signage and following our signage code. And the way that they described it is once they kind of get done with the product or projects, they kind of move on, and then all of a sudden the store manager is meeting with, say, a vice president or someone who's touring the store, and they say, how come you're not meeting corporate signage, and how come you're not throwing up the corporate, packages that they've kind of adopted universally? And so the store manager will quickly throw those things up just to get in compliance with, whatever directive they've gotten, which could be just a corporate, put this up, and they don't realize that they've stepped out of compliance in doing that. And so we're going to work closely with the store manager to try and build a relationship so that they understand those types of things. It's fairly innocuous on their side, and it was accidental on their side, but from our side it's, hey, you can't just change your signage. So please understand we're working with them, and I think that that's probably a fair assessment in a lot of these types of businesses. So for example, a lot of national chain, they have chain advertising and marketing schemes, and at the store level they're not aware that by incorporating what they're being asked to do, they're violating our code.
A lot of times a business will be given just a corporate sign package. I've had experience of that more than once in my career, that business comes in, that they say, okay, you're going to open this business, but here's your sign package. Yet it doesn't meet whatever that jurisdiction sign requirements are. Beacon Point, we did get red lines back to Beacon Point. We're waiting on those. They did resubmit to us some road changes that they were contemplating. Mark can probably explain a little more on that, since he's, I believe, sent those back to the applicant and may have some further update on that. We're expecting Beacon Point then to come back fairly shortly, get moving on that as well.
You ready for the report of action?
apologize, Nora.
No, that's fine, I tried to
North
condense
Shore?
it.
North Shore?
Okay. All right. Okay. Input.
Anybody have the address for Saturday in Orem?
Oh, yeah, what's she doing that? The 5 of you are going, raise your hands. You're all registered. I think you're all going to Orem now, I believe, too, right?
I hope so.
Does it, anybody have the address? I don't have the address.
I don't have it yet.
Well, I was confirmed for Taylorsville.
I was too.
Thank you.
I sent the information on to Meg, and I'm just gonna hope that goes through, but if you guys want to send out
They
the
responded
address.
to me quickly, so I bet tomorrow morning you'll get a response.
Yeah, so if you could send us the address so we know where to go, that'd be great.
It was in one of the emails at 1875 South State Street, Orem, is that correct?
I want to say that is should be in the office building, as you go down the hill on the left side, I'm guessing. I will, I'll do it tonight as well, because payroll is this week. You'll get paid your $50 stipend for going to that as well.
Does it start at 9 a.m.?
Yeah. 9 to what's it, 1 or something like that. I suspect we'll have some food for you there for holding over through lunchtime. Hope so.
I may have to step out a little early.
As planning commissioners, you're required training like this, so.
So don't feel bad.
A lot of it may be a review as well, but it doesn't hurt to have that.
At which firehouse are we going to meet at?
Not the ring one, but
The main,
The north one.
yeah.
Wait, where's that one? I know where the west one is.
Other direction.
I know where that one is.
Not the Ring Road one.
There's one north of all the high schools and the junior high.
Mhm.
That's the one? Okay, good, I've been there.
It was not specific.
just west of Sunrise.
The address is on the agenda.
Okay. Nora, you look like you're ready.
It's in the box.
I'm ready for one of them, yeah.
All right, let's go.
Okay. All these mice and keyboards and all this kind of stuff all over the place. All right. So, no public input. Key points discussed by Planning Commission include the following. General description of the neighborhood plan produced by the second paragraph. MR zone blended maximum is, well, let's get rid of this part. Allow city council to approve density of up to 12 units per acre. Neighborhood plan language. Will be changed to be clear that the extra density is at the discretion of council. Does that work for you, Ken?
Yeah, I think that's good, yeah.
Okay. Sandra, extra parking reduction based upon local community, doesn't meet the definitions.
Don't.
No, I think she said don't, she's
No,
southern.
it doesn't.
You're from the south, so you gotta say it.
It don't.
Come on.
It don't meet that definition.
It don't.
That is a southern thing.
It's not a local community. Don't need to be replacement for the farmhouse. Want to see extensive farmhouse.
Where it says don't want to see the sides, I don't know how to put it, because I saw tonight, they put stuff on the side,
but you still could see the back, and it just looked tacky.
I understand.
We don't have a requirement for single family. That's one of our things we work on.
Okay.
Anything attached has the architectural requirements.
I think we put it in you.
We did.
Okay.
That's where I'm going to get real tough on that one.
Once again, it's subjective, but I guess it has.
You guys all had comments when they presented this last, I think it was in June.
Probably. I don't remember.
My question is, when was that?
How's this, Sandy? Does that do it?
So people are asking questions.
Sandy, secondary facades may include side if they are visible, need to be addressed. All but one housing type, is it Legacy Farms?
The transit stuff will happen when UTA kind of lays it out.
And I can
We're
talk
just
about that
leaving
a
them
little
the
later.
spot for it as well.
Secondary facade architecture, modern design needs to go away, porches not
I know.
usable as shown.
It doesn't look the boat storage is going to
Organizational
happen.
design
The
framework.
boat storage probably is not
Other
going to happen.
neighborhoods,
That was a suggestion.
not complied, does not distinguish from others, not meeting that portion of the code, there's an opportunity.
Oh, this thing's already been.
Yes.
What's already counted as open space, can include area between the buildings, need to comply with open space definitions of preliminary plans, plat stage.
That's kind of like the work session. You make comments and then they'll come
Corner
back with
lots
stuff.
required to be 10% larger.
Still wish they would have come back with more different design. Yeah, usually it does a work session. Sometimes there's more than one work session, depending on how big the project is and what's going on with it. All right. Sometimes it's like a work session and rezone possibly.
Do it by itself.
In this case, there was an annex, this had a lot, there was an
Counting on it.
annexation. There were several
Okay.
different properties they had to
Yeah,
get.
really. Bryce asked for clarification on Prop 6. Discussion is more appropriate at the legislative stage.
Still was a good discussion.
Brian, have a really impressive amenity package. Carrying theme throughout amenity package is a good way to establish the theme. Hope it looks as good as the pictures. And then done great products in the past and think this is a good product. Many of the comments may be more appropriate for this.
I didn't say it would be appropriate for the city council. I said they would be more appropriate for subsequent steps.
Oh, that's right.
Not necessarily, they weren't the ones I was referring to. I was referring to the plat.
So I read all your guys' comments in the work meeting. I thought you all batted this thing around really well. My question is, when did those things come back full circle? I mean, you ask good questions.
Right? It was noticed, it just didn't, no? Yeah, so.
Okay,
maybe next
so
time.
then, the conditions, the amendment shall be edited as directed by planning commission. The neighborhood plan will be updated to include changes necessary in the stormwater plan to address pass-through flows from the north. Does that work? Gordon?
How come stormwater's red underlined? What's up with?
Oh, they
Is
left
it
it in 2 words.
That was, I think, yeah, it said pass-through, so there you go.
Through flows from the north property. That was my original.
And then we'll
Oh,
have
I
to,
probably changed the word to accommodate, and I think the
I said accommodate because I wrote exactly what you wrote down, or what you said. From the property to the north.
oh, they have 2 M's.
Spell check to tell you.
Let's see, it's 2 M's. And then we'll circle these.
We do.
That look okay?
I'll entertain a motion.
I move to accept the report of action on the North Shore action.
We have a motion, do we have a second?
Second.
We have a second, Commissioner Kilgore. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, do we have one more report of
We
action?
do have one more.
Okay.
This.
You-
The meeting isn't.
Good point. It is a good straight out. Than that. But we're doing it.
Hey, I just want you to know,
We're on Apple time. We're on Apple time. We start as soon as the iPad says it's time.
Just the church? Right.
Mr. Chair, are we still in the public meeting? Kirk, are we adjourned?
We are not adjourned. We have one more report of action we have to have a motion for.
All right, thank you.
Their doctrinal tenets have sure changed. That's why our things are right.
For the public record, we are not discussing anything with regards to the city.
Separation.
That's all conversations on public record.
I don't think so.
Kevin, that luau training Saturday?
They're saying we're required to do training.
Vicki, can you tell me who seconded the motion on Westview? All right. So, positive recommendation with conditions. This is on the Westview subdivision. No public input. Can't get rid of the blue thing. Planning Commission discussion, Kirk Wilkins, assessing of 10% larger for corner lots. Need to check the code. None. Discussion of right-of-way width. Other phases will have to use 59-foot right-of-way. There will be a feathered transition.
But why is there an underlined red thing? I don't know what
It just doesn't like that I didn't spell it out.
Is that why? Oh, okay.
You just need okay.
I realize that.
Yep, you have to change your name. Spell check doesn't like that.
You can right-click and add.
But then it won't be you.
I know.
Okay, and then the condition, the added condition is that no more than 50 lots can be built until there's a secondary access. And that was unanimous. Okay?
I'll entertain a motion.
I move we accept the reports of action for, which one was this?
For Westview.
Westview subdivision, Plat A.
Second. Motion from Christopher Kuntz, second from Commissioner Chapman. Any question on the motion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion passes unanimously. Without objection, we adjourn.
Thank you.
Dark. On the last day, so we were talking.
What was it? What was a rookie mistake? What did she say was a